From Trimble Construction, you're listening to the Connected Construction Show, where we connect you to the contractors, owners, designers, engineers, and construction professionals who are finding better ways to work. And now, here's your host, Matt Sprauge.
Hello and welcome to the Connected Construction Show. As always, I'm your host, Matt Sprauge. Excited as always for all of our guests, but we've got a character in our seat today. Excited to have Jon Huizenga from Trimble here today with us. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you having me on.
And so we'll get right into it, right? And our audience, our regular audience knows that we kick off the show the same way every single time. We want to get to know you a little bit. So tell us not only what you're doing at Trimble, but like what was the path that brought you there?
All right. Well, my official title is Technical Supply Chain Integration Manager, which no, I don't know what that means either. Not sure that they knew where to put me, but they knew what I had done before, so that's where I'm slotted. Probably like a lot of people after school, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. You know, everybody wanted experience, but you got to go somewhere to get experience. I sold cars for a little bit, which I suggest everybody do once just for the humiliation of it. I worked for a sporting good company for a couple of years in South Carolina and grew tired of retail hours pretty quickly. It was a great job, except for the low pay and bad hours. So I looked for an ad in the paper to find another job, and this is back before the internet, of course. So you looked in newspapers and found a job 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, one Saturday a month for 4 hours. But I can do that till I find something else. And that job was with Graybar Electric Company. And 29 years later, I retired from them after going through numerous jobs there. And that's what led me to Trimble. I worked with the folks at Trimble on supplier exchange, on submittal manager, on tracer, things that we used at Graybar, not only for ourselves, but for customer contact. And they knew that I knew their system and had experience with the contractor market, so it was a natural fit. I did work briefly for another company in between called eTurns that does inventory management software, and that was a great experience too. But had a conversation with the folks at Trimble about data, really manufacturer data. When I was at eTurns, that led to people that I knew at Trimble years before, and that's how it all started here.
The winding road that gets you here.
Yes.
All right. So you mentioned 29 years at Graybar, 3 or 4 years since then. So 33 years in the industry, give or take. So what's getting you up in the morning? What's keeping the juices flowing? What motivates you?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of things. One, I am a puzzle person. My mother started me on puzzles when I was 2 or 3 years old and fell in love with them. In e-business, which I did for about 16 years at Graybar, that was a giant puzzle that you were trying to put together. Here's what the customer wants. Here's what you have. Here are the pieces. This is the process. Make it work. And I really enjoyed finding solutions for the contractor to be more efficient, make them more money, bring Graybar more business. With what Trimble is doing with supplier exchange and the common data environment included there, it's that giant puzzle, and I'm back in the puzzle business again. So I really enjoy that. And I've always been able to teach people things. I played sports growing up, but I ended up being a coach when I was 18 years old for Little League. Moved up the ranks there. I did confirmation classes at church. I can relate things to people. I enjoy doing that. And that's really what I'm doing with distribution and with contractors now, is showing them how things can fit together to make them more efficient.
So let's dig into that a little bit, or no, not a little bit. Let's dig into that a lot. So what's the underlying problem? So when you were back in at Gray Bar,
Mhm.
what was the pain in what you set out to fix within not only your company but really the industry?
Yeah, construction, for all of its advances in the last few years, when you're getting into, and we'll talk later about some of that, but getting into HoloLenses and all of this 3D modeling and everything, it's still an old business at heart, and the day-to-day processes are very manual. And think about it, you've got people that have owned contractor companies for 40 years. They've always done things one way. Why do I need to change? I'm making money. But the issue now is their sons and daughters are taking over those businesses. They've grown up with computers. They've grown up expecting these things. And kicking and screaming, their parents are being dragged into this. And it just, there are so many inefficiencies in the process. And Trimble has so many ways to help them with those inefficiencies that it just really has presented another opportunity for me to put those puzzle pieces together.
So talk to me more about your experience at Gray Bar, and some examples of the problems that you were solving, and I don't know if this is the right way of putting it together, the technology that you were cobbling together to solve the problem.
Well, I'll give you an example of a project, and I can't tell you who it was or what the project was. Just know that it was what they termed a fast track project.
Gotcha.
They were given 18 months to do a 2.5 year job. And with that, they were going to get a bonus for every month they finished early on that. And so three or 4 weeks into the project, we got a call and said, we need help from this contractor. We don't know where the original estimate is. We don't know what the pricing was. We've got too many people working on this, because it was, as a fast track project, they were doing 3 shifts, 7 days a week. So there was always somebody there doing something. And so we walked into this, looked at what they had on site, and I almost turned around and left. But for this project, and granted, it was probably just in miscellaneous materials about 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars. That included no lighting or gear or anything like that. And on site, they had 3 full Connex trailers and 2 laydown yards full of pipe and wire and things like that. No order whatsoever within those. Each project manager every day was looking at what they needed to do the next morning and ordering material for it so it would be there, regardless of what was in the trailers. Because they weren't sure what was there, they had to order it to make sure they were on track. So we got out there, went through the inventory, consolidated it all down to a trailer and a half and 1 laydown yard for what they would need to go through a typical 3 to 4 day process. And set up electronic ordering so that basically when they used something, they noted it in the system, and when it got to a min level, it automatically reordered for them. And it reordered standardized material. Each of those project managers probably had a favorite brand. So for the same half-inch EMT fitting, there were 3 or 4 brands out there. And I don't want that one, I want to use this one. Well, they standardized on everything. They had their material there the next day, almost every time. They had standardized information on what was there, because when that bill comes from the distributor to accounting, the project manager or the estimator may have called it a half-inch split bolt, but the distributor calls it a Kearney. And accounting doesn't know that. So all of those invoices, when they matched up to accounting, had to go back to the project manager. Is this the right material? Does it match? All of that was eliminated also. And we were doing something called PO backfill, which is what we do today at Trimble in a much more sophisticated fashion. So it was loading all that data for the contractor into their accounting system. They didn't key anything. There were no what's commonly known as fat fingering errors. So everything matched. We found we got paid faster because of it, because there was no research that needed to be done, no discrepancies there. We got through with the project, got them done a month early. They had everything they needed. They were able to run their shifts. So they got their bonus. And at the end of the project, they had a wrap-up meeting. And they asked the e-business department from Graybar to come. That never happens. Never, ever. It's always the sales rep, the
You're
operations
always being
guy.
left out.
Well, not left out. It's just such a small part of what they do. We're not important enough to fly across the country to a wrap-up meeting. But I was called to that. They left e-business for last, which is dreadful. You're sitting there the whole meeting listening to everything that went wrong. And they said, we saved you for last because it was the best project we ever ran. As far as the pricing matched, the material was here, accounting had no problems with us. And since then, they've used Graybar for multiple $1 million plus projects using that system that we put together for them. They were more efficient. They said we had electricians turning screwdrivers rather than hunting material down or trying to order something or running to the distributor to get it because it wasn't there. So that was a great feeling.
So just, I'm going to kind of play back a couple problems in my head to make sure that I'm kind of understanding it correctly. And you can either say you got it or Matt, you're an idiot. This is what I meant. So cool. What I'm hearing, and it's not completely limited to these two things, is that there was a scenario where they were ordering supplies as needed, which then I'm assuming there were times where they're ordering it for the next day, and the suppliers are like, we can't get it to you, so therefore it then delays that project. Is that right? At one scenario, and then the other one in maybe the I guess maybe not necessarily more impactful, but equally impactful is it was estimated utilizing this part number, but they like this one, which is 5% higher in price because they're doing their ordering themselves and it's not standardized. So therefore the estimate, it could end up being, or the actual can end up being higher than the estimate just based on preferential ordering.
That's correct. They were never sure if they were going to be on budget or not because of all the, well, and you mentioned too, they ordered something for the next morning and it may or may not be there. It was probably there just in a trailer sitting somewhere and they didn't know where it was. Because they like to hoard things for themselves. That's a common project manager scenario. Let's hoard material just in case. But they had so much just in case they didn't have what they needed.
Yep. Yep. And then there's the case at the end of it that you've got all this extra and it's all over ordered. And, granted, it could probably be utilized on the next job, but.
Well, maybe. It could be a different brand for that next job that's preferred by the general contractor or the building owner.
Understood.
But one of the things I forgot to mention, and you brought it up, and thank you for doing that, $1.2 million in 11 and a half months, 12 months or so on that. The return at the end of the job, because we had whittled down their inventory, had just what they needed there most of the time, was less than $4,000 on a 1.2 million job. Unheard of.
That's crazy. That's amazing. And then you mentioned in terms of the standardization, right? Is that one side of the equation calls it X, the other one calls it Y. Mm-hmm. So how many years ago was that project?
That was about 13 or 14 years ago.
All right. So where are we in the industry in terms of standardization now? Fast forward.
It's getting better. And the nice thing is working with Supplier Exchange today, built into the background for that, when a customer requests pricing on a particular item, we get the UPC number, the manufacturer, and the catalog number. And as long as they don't choose no substitutes, in the background, the comparator database that we have looks for all the possible crosses for that same form, fit, and function for that item. And it will pull up for that local distributor what they support for that customer for that. So you may have asked for a Steel City item and they support THEPIT. Well, it goes in and says, this distributor doesn't carry that Steel City item, but they do carry this THEPIT item. And here's the price for that. And it returns it and it lets them know this is a subbed item. And it makes the hit rate so much better. It gets them the correct price because that's what's being supported for them. They're much more accurate up front.
So let's fast forward from your 29 years at Graybar, and we're gonna skip over e-turns, and we're gonna get into Trimble. No offense to e-turns,
No.
but that it's just to kind of say, like, so this is now continuing to be the problem you're looking to solve and work on at Trimble. So what's the technology that Trimble's offering, and how is it helping to scale the efficiencies in that procurement process across the entire industry?
Well, Trimble's in a kind of a unique position because they touch so many pieces of that process for the contractor and the distributor.
Mm-hmm.
You start with the estimating, you get into project management, purchasing, accounting, scheduling, even fabrication, 3D with Siskiyou. All of those pieces work off the same data. And it's
Yep.
usually started at the estimating, whether that's AutoBid, AccuBid, Estimation MEP, or Siskiyou. We can take that data from there as a download into Supplier Exchange. Now we have it available for all of these different parts of the puzzle that are there. So you do that original estimate. When you're ready, yes, that's approved. It goes off to project management. Project management looks at it and says, okay, I need this material on site on these days. They can schedule that through the system for the purchasing agent who doesn't have to rekey it. It's all that data's there already. They create the purchase order through Supplier Exchange. Now, Supplier Exchange can also do a formal quote. So it has the ability, maybe it's an item that's an oddball that's not in, hard to believe, but it's not in the database for trade service, which has 3 million plus electrical items in it already. They can put in there, this is what it is. Here's a big description of it. Go find it for me, Mr. Distributor. Well, they can do that. The distributor can respond to that quote directly within Supplier Exchange and then take that information and turn it into a purchase order, which goes directly into the distributor's system for that particular contractor by their account number. They can confirm that. Once they confirm it, the contractor then takes that data, hits a button and says, sync to my ERP system, and it takes all that line item detail, drops it in their accounting software. They don't have to key anything. So we've taken that first set of data from the estimate, used it through the entire system, and it makes it so much more efficient. Fewer errors, fewer changes go into that, because then you get into that preference thing again. Now it's set for this project. This is what we're using. This is the price we've negotiated through the whole project. All of it's there. And by the way, Supplier Exchange can say, all right, from AccuBid, I'm going to bring what's known as work breakdown structure into Supplier Exchange. So I've set up this project. Here's the total bill of material, but now I'm doing it by phase, by floor, by room. Any way I break it down, I can actually pull that into Supplier Exchange so that when the project manager looks at that and he's told, okay, for phase 1, floor 2, rooms 3, 4, and 5, those have to be done next Monday. He can go into Supplier Exchange, pull up that phase, that floor, and those 3 rooms, click on it, and it'll pull the bill of material. He can order that at once.
Wow.
right there. So it's already broken down for him. He knows exactly what he needs. And then as it goes to the distributor, they can mark it, hey, this is for this particular floor phase in rooms. So when it gets to the site, they can go direct, it can be put directly there, and they know they have what they need.
So I'm loving that. I mean, this is connected construction. I just lost count of the stakeholders involved in that storyline that you just mentioned. Um, but I want to focus here a little bit on, and I don't know if this was part of it, but like, is it smart enough to know that in the estimating phase that it looks down the supply chain and it actually knows what the actual supply is, and therefore helps not necessarily dictate, but helps show you that, like, hey, you're not going to be able to get this piece on that timeline, so therefore you have to order these, or you need to push that timeline out.
Yeah, it does allow that information to go back and forth between the contractor and the distributor as far as lead times, as far as this item is normally stocked versus this is a non-stock item that needs to be bulk buyed at the beginning. When I said you could do those releases based on the phase, the floor, and all of that, you can do that within there, and it will show you, you've ordered, for this project, we need 5,000 of these. On these 3 days, you've ordered 1,000, 1,000 and 2,000. You have 1,000 left. It shows you the purchase orders in it. With that purchase order, it has all that detail about what phase it went to and all of that. That information goes to the distributor so they know when you need it, if they need to do the bulk buy, if they need to change, if it's a stock item but you're ordering much more than they normally have, they can order that extra into stock. They can feed it into their system so that they know, oh, the demand on this day will be this, so we need to up our current ordering. That demand planning piece loves that information that we can give them up front. So it does help both sides make sure there's material there.
So within the segment of Trimble that I'm in, we kind of have our gold star customers, the ones that are really leveraging, maybe not all that we offer, but a really significant portion that tells like a really good story. Do you have like a gold star type of customer, and you don't necessarily have to use their name and whatnot, and like, is there a unique story on how they're leveraging it, or a unique way of the benefits that they're receiving from it?
Yeah, they probably don't want us to tell their competition these things.
Fair enough.
But we have one we're working with right now who has locations in multiple states. I think it's 5 or 6 states now. They do projects around the country, but they have those offices there. And while they have a general process in place, each of the individual offices, and there are 14 of them, kind of do their own thing a little bit. And it's frustrating the corporate office to no end because they have to consolidate that information from different sources in different formats. And that's not efficient. So we are working with them right now because they are estimating users. They use a Trimble backend. They use Siskiyou for their 3D modeling. We're working with them to make supplier exchange the process for all their locations to do everything the same. So we have, they're going to take that estimate, bring it into supplier exchange, do day-to-day pricing for one-time buys. They're going to do quotes for larger buys. They're going to place the purchase orders. All of that data is going to be synced into their back-end systems for project management and accounting and purchasing, since they use all of that. So they're definitely a gold star customer in that they've had a drink of the Kool-Aid that is Trimble, and they believe in it, and they've asked us to help them with their processes. We're about 2/3 of the way through that right now, and the end is coming quickly, where we are actually going to help them create that outline for all of their locations. This is how you do it. This is why we're doing it. Here are your resources for doing that. And we're using some of the videos that we've done in the past to train their people before we do a one-time training for all of them. So they have definitely had that drink of the Kool-Aid. They believe in the system. We've shown them the efficiencies, and they're moving forward quickly with it. My guess is by the end of summer, all their locations are going to be on the system using Trimble only. And the great thing for Trimble in that, other than they're using all those things today, they've given us a list of distributors that they want as part of this system. Yep. The good thing for those distributors is it is a single system. They'll always get POs from this customer the same way, in the same format. And we've got several ways to send that data, whether it's APIs or, go back to old-fashioned EDI, which everybody says is going to die, but it keeps chugging right along. We can send that data to them in a format they can accept that's already in their system. They already know how to use it. And the contractor doesn't have to do a different system for each distributor they use. Well, they've given us a list of 20 that they use on a regular basis. 15, they said you have to have them do this electronically, or we may not buy from them. So that's incentive for the distributor to come on board, be direct connect, and be part of a D1, a distributor one bundle that gets them this service. So they're generating more business for us because we've shown them how efficient it can be.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, the products that I work directly with are specifically for the owner organization. So whether it's the government agencies or the hospital network or the university system or whatever it might be, and we have this ideology and this kind of path moving forward in terms of asset lifecycle management, right? Is the North Star, right? And we have the specific tools and how they're utilized to get there. However, the evolution of the individual agency or owner that we work with is not cookie cutter. Like how they get there, how everything gets implemented, where they are at their particular stage of their journey is different. Is that, are you finding the same thing with the contractors and the general contractors that you're working with?
I think so. And it's been kind of for a long time, IT was build it and they will come. But what you found is almost everything is a one-off. It could be 95% the same, but this particular system wants this field here, not here, and they want it to be in this order. And no, I don't use that. Don't ever send that to me. Don't even put it in the feed that you give me, even though I can tell my system to ignore it. Everything is kind of a one-off, although we've attacked some systems, some back-end systems on purpose because a large number of, say, contractors use this particular ERP system, or a large number of distributors use this ERP system. And so we can put together that map for that 90%, where instead of doing a full integration from start to finish, we're 90% there already and just have to ask these few questions about how would you like to do this. We've found that some like it here, some like it here. What would you like? Makes our life easier too, but that's taken a little bit of time to do that, to go through all those iterations. But I think we're getting really close to being able to just, the integrations we do between a distributor and a contractor, that timeline is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter as we go.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your journey as well as kind of the connected construction technology journey that you've gone on and what you've continued on with Trimble. We have a brand new segment in the show that you are the guinea pig for. So congratulations to you. So we're gonna, I guess, currently gonna call it hot take. And we're going to take kind of a current event article that we hear about and kind of get your thoughts on. And we did share it with you, so this isn't a shotgun approach. But there was a interesting article that was out there about Walmart utilizing artificial intelligence to negotiate cost and purchase terms with their vendors, specifically on like the equipment they're going to be utilizing in their stores and whatnot. So um, uh, cool, crazy. What's your kind of reaction to the use of AI for those purposes?
Well, there is a place for that stuff. It's I did read up a little bit on that, and I looked at some other articles about how they were using it, why they decided to do it, and didn't realize that they've been using Chat GPT since 2021 for
Mm-hmm.
different things internally, and then they decided, well, we can feed this data in about here's my budget, here's what I'm looking to buy, these are the quantities I need, go negotiate. It was interesting to me that they did limit it to that because it's very specific data they're using. So I get that. But what the part that interested me was 3 out of 4 vendors preferred negotiating
Yeah.
through this than through humans. And I was trying to figure out why. And I think emotion comes into that because obviously there's no emotion on the other end. So, and it can only deal with the data that's given to it. So it's interesting. I think there'll be better versions, excuse me, better versions of Chat GPT, which is what, version 4.0 now. It's still limited to data that's been loaded, and it's 2 years old. It's not connected to the internet today.
Yeah.
I know Bing is using some of that same technology. I think they're on 4.0, but they've connected it to the internet, so the data is a little more current. There's others out there, Jasper, and I think Google Bard is starting slowly for more paper writing things. And I think that's how this all started, right? It was a way to put down your thoughts intelligently, and it would write
Yep.
up things for you. There is going to be some use for that. You may have to, again, drag those older contractors and distributors kicking and screaming into it. But it's going to be there, and it's going to be one of those things that it's like the internet. I actually had somebody in a business, I can say it was at Gray Bar, an older gentleman who was pretty high up told me the internet was a fad. So I could understand where he was coming from, that he didn't make that connection to where it could go. He was looking at it as it was. There's going to be a lot of connections. We don't know where this is going to go yet. I'm sure it's going to creep up into things, but in the next year, probably not the construction industry.
Yeah.
After that, who knows?
We'll get there. The other piece that I liked about, in terms of like a reason why 75% preferred dealing with the chatbot, might have been just timeliness of response, right? Because I think they had said that essentially the chatbot was negotiating with 2,000 vendors simultaneously. Even if you have 100 people that normally do this, the back and forth must be infuriating because it takes so long to get
Right.
responses, and this is almost immediate. So it's obviously a time saver on Walmart's part, but also the individual vendors. It's just like, we can get through our negotiation with Walmart within whatever, like 15 minutes. I don't even know how long
Yeah.
it takes, but considerably less. So
I think when they
it's
develop it,
interesting.
I think when they develop it to the point where it can be like, I don't know if you're familiar with the electrical industry, going into the counter to find something. Hey, I have this issue in this space, and I've got to be able to figure out how to get this from here to here. And the counter guy sits there and goes, okay, these two pieces fit together, and here's your place, but this is where you're going to have a problem. You're going to have to do this, this, and this. And they come up with a solution together. I'm not sure that this is there yet, and that's still going to be needed for a long time in the construction area.
Yeah,
But
experiential knowledge. Yeah.
So, but there'll be a place for it.
Well, awesome. I think I'm going to like this segment. I know we're not gonna talk about Walmart every single time, but we'll definitely explore some new things. And so, Jon Huizenga, thank you so much again for sharing your story and your journey and your experiences and knowledge. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope our listeners and our viewers are of the same. Thanks again for joining the show.
Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this old guy talk.
I loved it. And for everybody out there, thank you very much for tuning in. And until next time, stay connected.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Connected Construction Show. For more information, visit us at connectedconstructionshow.com.